Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders. But thou shalt call thy walls salvation, and thy gates praise. The sun shall be no more thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto thee. But the Lord shall be unto thee an everlasting light, and thy God thy glory. Thy sun shall no more go down, neither shall thy moon withdraw itself. For the Lord shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended. Thy people also shall be all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten it in his time.
The ocean spirit dances today to abundance and joy and to eternal peace.
Jake about to live, man. Jake about to truly live forever. And how we gonna tap in? Through this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, which is gonna lead us into eternal life. This wisdom is gonna bring us into the kingdom of heaven, which starts with the elect. And Lord's will, we are those men. This is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 6, and verse 17. And it reads, "For the very true beginning of her, and her represents wisdom. For the very true beginning of her is the desire of discipline. And the care of discipline is love. And love is the keeping of her laws. And the giving heed unto her laws is the assurance of incorruption. Therefore, the desire of wisdom bringeth to a kingdom." So this wisdom is going to bring us into the kingdom of heaven, because it starts with the Lord's men. "If your delight be then in thrones and scepters, O you kings of the people, honor wisdom, that you may reign forevermore." You see?
To the glory of our golden age, may it shine forever.
So we're going to reign forever. Lord's willing, we are part of the elect.
Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. For the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. And he saith unto me, Write, blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he saith unto me, These are the true sayings of God.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Rakakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us younger brothers. And peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Rakakadash. Pushing to get up out of there. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah. All right. And what we're going to get into, all right, with this lesson, is dealing with the buffet, of understanding. These last days, as the Lord promised, he will pour out his spirit, okay, in these latter days, you see, and we in these latter days have a buffet of understanding of what's going on. You know, a buffet of understanding of who we are, who our powers, who our powers are, their names. Okay, what Yahweh Shai means, the understanding of Yahweh Shai, the breakdown, the scriptures, the prophecy, okay, the history, whatever, is needed to be understood, where there's a buffet of understanding. There's more than enough. And it reminds me, and this story was inspired by, reading this in the book of Mark, this parable, dealing with the miracle of, multiplying, the bread and fish, okay, which we know in the spirit, the Lord has multiplied his word in the last days, okay, to where it's more than enough. Okay, this is the book of Mark chapter 8 and verse 1. Okay, it says, in those days, the multitude being very great and having nothing to eat, Yahweh Shai called his disciples unto him and said unto them, all right, and these were people that was following Yahweh Shai as he was teaching. They'll follow him all day. Now some were there, that wasn't sincere, but you had, the sincere believers following Yahweh Shai all day. Okay, verse 2, it says, I have compassion on the multitude because they have now been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away fasting to their houses, they will faint by the way, for divers of them came from far. A lot of them, diverse, different ones came from afar, following him as he was teaching. And his disciples answered him, from whence can a man satisfy these men? And with bread, okay, in the wilderness. Let me get this in NLT as well. Let me get this in NLT. Okay, I'm gonna start back at 1 in NLT. A little clearer. Mark 8 and 1, it says, about this time another large crowd had gathered, and this in NLT, and people ran out of food again. Yahweh Shai called his disciples and told them, I feel sorry for these people. They have been with me for 3 days and they have nothing left to eat. If I send them home hungry, they will faint along the way, for some of them have come a long distance. His disciples replied, how are we supposed to find enough food to feed them out here in the wilderness? Okay, and they were still, their faith wasn't strong yet, because this is the second time, okay, that he's getting ready to do a miracle with the food. You see, and that's, as we come into this thing, we're immature in the faith. We don't see when the Lord is setting up a play for a miracle, man. But as we mature, even in our day to day, man, we see, we see more and more when the Lord is setting up a play for a miracle. When he's setting up to make moves in the earth, man. Even when we look at prophecy and certain moves are being made, we see, okay, the Lord is setting the stage to do something. And it says, Mark 8 and 5, it says, Yahweh Shai asked, how much bread do you have? 7 loaves, they replied. So Yahweh Shai told all the people to sit down on the ground. Then he took the 7 loaves, thanked the Most High for them, and broke them into pieces. He gave them to his disciples, who distributed the bread to the crowd. Okay. A few small fish were found too. So Yahweh Shai also blessed these and told the disciples to distribute them. They ate as much as they wanted. Afterward, the disciples picked up 7 large baskets of leftover food. So this word, when you go into this word, which is likened unto bread, okay, Yahweh Shai gives his word to what? His prophets. And his prophets distribute this word amongst the believers. Because first, they had to sit down, which is a position of submission. You see, they had to be seated. They had to sit down, so ultimately had to submit, to the authority of this word. You see, they sit on the ground and eat. Well, the believers, they're sitting, they're submitting to the authority of this word. Okay. And Yahweh Shai distributed distributes, the bread through what? The prophets, man. Okay. And then when they ate, all right, let's see, there's verse 8 says they ate as much as they wanted. Okay, are we not in that position now? So the word is started from, one man through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim al-Shah, Elder our business. Okay, but then this word, this bread, it multiplied to what we see today, which is now a global ministry. Okay, and cannot we eat as much as we want every day and still have leftover? You still can't watch every video that comes out. Okay. You see, so the Lord has multiplied this word just like he multiplied the fish and bread. So just as he multiplied the physical meal, he's multiplied the spiritual meal to where we can buffet and we can eat as much as we want and still have leftover food, man, for the day. There's no way we can eat everything that's coming out, okay, in the spirit. There's no way we can watch every video, absorb every video. No. Hey, we just like a buffet. You take your portion, and you sit down and you enjoy the meal. You take down the meal. You see, it says they ate as much as they wanted. Afterwards, the disciples picked up 7 large baskets of leftover food. There were about 4,000 in home, or I sent them home after they had eaten. Okay, so everyone was able to eat till they full. You see, with leftovers, man, and that's the predicament that we in now. That's why when you go to Jeremiah, the Lord promised that he would do what? Jeremiah 3. Okay, let's get to Jeremiah 3 and 14. It's the book of Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 14. It says, "Turn, O backsliding children, saith the Lord, for I am married unto you." You see, and this is a call of repentance. This is the Lord calling, his people to repent and be joined back unto him. Married, all right, means you're joined to one. Okay, and we're like the bride. Okay, the Most High's woman. You see, he was in bad standards. You see, that's why he called it old backsliding children. You see, this preaching is the Most High, telling, pretty much like a man telling his woman, "Now bring your silly ass home, man." Okay, it was in bad standing. The woman being simple. Okay, got the man looking crazy out here. Okay, and then eventually the man, he has pity on the woman, and calls her back, to be joined unto him. Okay, and says, "I will take you one of a city and two of a family and bring you to Zion," and that's the Lord extrapolating, okay, the elect from amongst, all right, the nation, man. You see, that's the Lord, through the preaching of his word, because how are people being extrapolated out of the nation of Israel through this preaching? This preaching is causing the separation. It's calling the remnant to be gathered in these last days. Okay, verse 15, "And I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding." You see that? "Which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding." Okay, so in these latter days, all right, the Lord has raised up pastors according to his own heart, his own mind. Okay, that's feeding, okay, the remnant with knowledge and understanding. It's a buffet. Okay, you can't even keep up with, you start with the apostles, man. You can't even keep up with all their videos in a week. You can't even watch all their videos. Every video that they put out, man, it's hard just to keep up with the apostles themselves, man. Just those 4 men. But then you have the body itself, man. It's a buffet. Okay, and you go let's get this Get this word feed, see if it give us something. Let's see. The Hebrew look like Ra'ah. All right, Ra'ah. Yep. It says to feed. All right. To pastor, to shepherd. Okay. A ruler or teacher. You see that? A ruler or teacher. Okay. So the Lord has raised up teachers to feed, his people with understanding in these last days. Okay. And you go into let's get there real quick. Let's get this word buffet. Let's get this word buffet. And this is on the Edom. Now, this word is used two different ways, to buffet. Okay. Then you have the buffet, what you're dealing with when you jump down. All right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, here we go. Buffet. Okay. So you go to the noun, buffet. Okay. It said the sense in English was extended to refreshment bar, place set aside for refreshments in a public place. And the Lord has this truth. This buffet of understanding just set aside in the public place, man. You see, it is a refreshing to what? The spirit, and it's a place set aside. This ministry is set aside in the public place, and it's a refreshment to the spirit. You see, and that's why. Let's go back here. Let's go to Proverbs. You see, because it just says, let's go here. Because just like the prophets, and the Lord has the prophets as if they're serving tables like a great king's feast, and the prophets are, servers at their feast, preparing the mood, so like preparing the food, cooking it up, because just like when you go to a banquet or a restaurant, well, you don't see the food being prepared, but when it's ready, it's coming to you. Just like you don't see, brothers preparing lessons, because even what they call, like a cook up, I'm cooking something up, their term, all right, cooking something up. You see, I think that's like a slang. Okay. Let's see. Cooking. Something up. So when you're cooking something up, okay, that means you're coming up with something. You see, so you don't see, so just like a banquet or a restaurant, you don't see the food being prepared, but once it's prepared, it's brought to you, man. And that's how the Lord has the truth, man. Brothers in the background, cooking up, these spiritual meals, okay, and then it's brought right to you. It's uploaded right to you. Okay. Proverbs 9:1 said, wisdom hath builded her house. She have hewn down her 7 pillars. Okay. Because our kingdom is going to be founded upon wisdom. That's why the Lord is laying the foundation to the kingdom, because the kingdom starts with the people. So the Lord is laying down the foundation of wisdom, okay, in this kingdom to come. This our kingdom is going to be upheld by true wisdom and understanding. Okay. Verse 2 says, she have killed her beasts, she have mingled her wine, she have also furnished her table. You see that? And speaking of wisdom, so the buffet, this wisdom is likened unto what? A feast. It says she have killed her beast, she have mingled her wine, she have also furnished her table. Okay, so the meal is prepared. The Lord has raised up, the prophets, okay, to what? To prepare the feast, and now the believers are able to just come and buffet, and then even the same people that's cooking the food, we can buffet on the food as well, as we're constantly watching and being edified and fed and built up in the spirit. It says she have sent forth her maidens, which are the prophets. She cried upon the highest places of the city. Wait a minute, that's the camps. Okay, that's the camps that's inviting, okay, our people to the buffet. But we know only a remnant is going to truly appreciate and partake in it. It said, "Whoso is simple, let him turn in thither. As for him that wanted understanding, she said to him, Come, eat of my bread." Wait a minute. You see that? Come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine which I have mingled. Okay? Come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine which I have mingled. Wait a minute. Was not, all right, even the new covenant, okay? Did not we break bread? All right, at the promise of a new covenant, at the return of Yahushua. You see, did we not break bread and drink wine? You see? So the Lord has multiplied, okay, this food, this spiritual food in these last days. You see, come and eat my bread, which is the doctrine, this understanding. Okay, which is the bread we know represents the body of Yahushua, and the wine represents what? Their blood, their sacrifice. Okay, which reconciles us back to the Father through faith. Okay, it says, forsake the foolish and live and go in the way of understanding. Okay, because the doctrine, okay, or well, when you come into, as we, partake in this meal, well, this meal is restoring us back to righteousness, man. Okay, it's giving us clarity, it's giving us life. You see, and we're being purged. This word, it detoxes us from what? Foolishness, man. Okay, and bring us back to life and purpose and the way of understanding. You see? So let's go from there. Let's get this in Isaiah 55, and this is another invitation. You go to Isaiah 55:1. It says, Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that have no money, come ye buy and eat. Yeah. Come buy wine and milk without money, without price. Yeah, because the buffet is free. Okay. There's no Patreon. There's no subscription. Okay. We're not panhandling, asking for donations every 3 minutes. Okay. Not guilt tripping you to donate. Was their precept? Will a man rob the Most High? They say that, the nigga pastor, bring that out. Will a man rob the Most High? You see? Nah, man. If you feel persuaded, if you're persuaded to give, it's beautiful, the water, all right, to you brothers, to you few sisters, man, that, they give, much appreciated. Okay? But you can come, all right, with $0, man. You see, and partake in the buffet. Okay? The buffet of this word, man, you can come and eat and be fed all day. So this is an invitation to the buffet. Ho, everyone that thirsts, come ye to the water. It's an invitation. Come to these waters. Come to the truth. Come buffet on this understanding. That's a invitation. And he that have no money, come. ye buy and eat. Yeah, come. Buy wine and milk without money, without price. Okay. Okay. Verse 2, it says what? Wherefore do you spend money on that which is not bread? Yeah. Going to church, paying tithes, and not getting any understanding. Okay. Part of this, the 5%ers. Okay. The Egyptology. Okay. You paying dues or whatever, but you're not getting any understanding, man. Okay. It says, in your labor for that which satisfy not, hearken diligently unto me and eat, yeah, that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness, man. Delight yourself in fatness. You see? I'm saying you can just come, you know what I'm saying, and get full, get that spiritual, all right, a daily spiritual nutrition, man. Because nothing else is satisfying. That's why people are malnourished in the spirit. You talk to a Christian in the spirit, they're completely dehydrated, man. They're famished in the spirit because they're not partaking, in the spiritual meal. They haven't been invited to the feast. Because really they've turned down the invitation. Because the invitation has went out. You see? But if you're not on the list in the spirit, well, guess what? You're not going to hearken. You're not going to, partake. You're not going to see, the value in this spiritual buffet. Because the invitation has went out. But see, you got to be on the list in the spirit, the book of life, to be able to partake. Many are called, but few are chosen. You see? So now you have a remnant that's buffeting, on what? The fatness of this word, man. They're delighting their soul. It said, let your soul delight itself in fatness, man. So our soul is being delighted in fatness. Okay? You go here to the book of Psalm. Book of Psalm 23 and 5. It said, thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemy. Yeah. So the Lord prepared, he put a spread out. He put out a spread of, the fine meats, to, the choice, foods, the best feast. Right in the presence of our enemies, man. We're buffeting right in the midst of Esau, man. And Esau looking at us buffet on this understanding and resources, to keep us, from being fed in the spirit. You see, he wanted us to eat his meats, nigger culture, feminism, gangster, thugs, gangsters, niggas, hoes, plantation Christians, or Democrat, whatever. He wanted us to eat his madness, man. But now the Lord switched up the menu for the hopeful elect in these last days, man. It said, thou anointest my head with oil, with this Holy Spirit. My cup runneth over. Yeah, so cup runneth over, that's talk for abundance. You go to a feast and, there's more wine there that you can drink. And that's how the Lord is doing with our understanding. Our cup is running over, man. You see? And every day, this understanding is just going out, just running over. You can put your cup out there and the wine just constantly pouring. It's like a fountain, of this understanding. And it's always running. You look at it, this is a fountain of understanding that's just going 24/7. All you gotta do is put your cup out there and pull it back. You can drink till you feel. You see? Put the cup back in there, fill it up, and you can do that every day, all day, man. Okay. So this is, the beautiful thing that the Lord has established, all right, in these last days, and he expects us to be stewards, okay, good stewards with these, with these, it's like with this buffet, with the buffet the Lord has provided, he expects us to be good stewards of it. So that's why you go to the book of Luke, okay, chapter 12 and verse starting 41. All right, this is Luke 42:1. It said, Then Peter said unto him, Lord, speakest thou this parable unto us all, or even to all? And the Lord said, Who then is that faithful and wise steward, okay, whom his Lord shall make ruler over his household, to give them their portion of meat in due season? Let's read this in NLT. All right, let's read this in NLT. Back in Luke 12 and 42, it says, And the Lord replied, A faithful, sensible servant is one to whom the master can give the responsibility of managing his household servants and feeding them. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay? So you have prophets. It's like you have prophets whom the Lord has, given the responsibility of managing his household, which is the elect, the house of David. Okay, and feeding them. You see, just as Yahweh Shai is in the spiritual realm, he's gone away, but he left, okay, stewards, okay, the prophets over his household affairs in the spirit, and feeding them. So you can't, all right, what if we, that's why we can't take a 2-week, okay, 2-week break, 2-month break. Nah, man, this thing is like a well-oiled machine in the spirit, man. Okay? You wake up to a meal. You go to sleep to a meal. Midday meal. So the Lord got this thing, he has, responsible stewards as managing, his household. Okay? In the spirit. It says, if the master returns and finds that servant has done a good job, there will be a reward. I tell you the truth. The master will put that servant in charge of all he owns. Okay? Let's be in joint heirs. You see? So the Lord has raised up, the prophets in these latter days, to be stewards, over this buffet, man. Make sure, you gotta make sure the food is hot. Switch out the pans. Okay. Keeping everything full, nothing runs out. Okay. So the Lord, to where we can just buffet, So that's the point, I leave it there. Lord will. All right, you brothers and you few sisters will edify once again, and we give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rakakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS, rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessing salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom.